In the quiet hum of the ancient world, under a velvet sky thick with stars, there lay the city of Baghdad, a circular jewel shining in the heart of Mesopotamia, where the Tigris River flowed like a ribbon of liquid silver through the sleeping landscape. Imagine the gentle lap of the water against the sandstone docks as the night air carries the scent of blooming jasmine and distant cedarwood, drifting through the high arches of the House of Wisdom, where the Golden Age was not a time of noise but a time of profound and rhythmic thought. Picture yourself walking down a long corridor of smooth, cool marble, where the moonlight spills through geometric lattices, casting intricate shadows that dance slowly across the floor as you move deeper into the heart of the library. There is no rush here, only the soft sound of parchment rustling like the wings of a moth, and the faint scratching of a reed pen against heavy paper, as scholars translate the secrets of the universe into the language of logic. The air is still and temperate, carrying the warmth of the desert day held within the thick clay walls which protect the silence and the knowledge of centuries. You feel the weight of 1,000 scrolls resting on cedar shelves, each one a quiet voice from the past, waiting to be understood by the steady mind of Al-Khwarizmi, who sits by a flickering oil lamp that casts a warm amber glow over his workspace. His movements are slow and deliberate as he contemplates the balance of numbers and the harmony of the stars above the city's blue-tiled domes. The city outside has settled into a deep, peaceful slumber where the merchants have tucked away their silks and the spice markets are closed, leaving only the lingering fragrance of cinnamon and dried rose petals in the cool night breeze. You listen to the rhythmic breathing of the city, a low and steady vibration that grounds you in this moment of timeless discovery, where every equation is a step toward understanding the vastness of the cosmos. The desert sands beyond the walls are shifting almost imperceptibly under the moon, creating dunes that look like frozen waves in a sea of silence. As you continue to the halls, the sound of your footsteps is swallowed by thick Persian carpets woven with patterns of indigo and gold, leading you toward a balcony, where the air is fresh and the view of the horizon is endless. You watch the constellations move in their slow and predictable tracks across the dark expanse of the firmament. Much like the numbers Al-Khwarizmi arranges on his page to find order in the chaos of existence, there's a sense of immense safety in this order of feeling that everything in the world has a place and a purpose, and that the mysteries of the morning are nothing to fear because the logic of the universe is constant and kind. The flickering lamp beside the scholar begins to dim as the oil burns low, creating a soft and hazy atmosphere, where the lines between the physical world and the world of dreams begin to blur into a single tapestry of peaceful thought. You find yourself leaning against a pillar of sandalwood, feeling its steady strength and the coolness of the stone floor beneath your feet as the quietness of 9th century Baghdad wraps around you like a heavy silk blanket. The Tigris continues its eternal journey toward the sea, carrying away the worries of the day and leaving behind only the stillness of the night and the promise of a quiet mind. The stars seem to pulse with slow and rhythmic light synchronized with your own heartbeat as you drift further away from the waking world and into the deep sanctuary of history, where the only task is to exist in this space of beauty and brilliance. The ink on the page is dry, now capturing the essence of algebra in a way that feels as natural as the turning of the earth or the coming of the tide. Every breath you take is filled with the calm of a civilization that valued the silence of the library as much as the bustle of the market, and in this moment the silence is all that remains. Let the image of the round city with its golden gates and tranquil gardens fade into a soft mist of blue and gray as you sink deeper into the comfort of your surroundings, knowing that the journey of knowledge is long and slow and perfectly at peace. The shadows are long and soft, and the world is very quiet, and the story of the numbers is a lullaby that never ends. In the heart of the great city of Baghdad, there stood a sanctuary of silence known as the House of Wisdom, where the walls were thick enough to drown out the echoes of the world, and the air was perpetually cooled by the shadows of grand vaulted ceilings. Imagine yourself standing at the massive oak doors of this legendary library, where the grain would feel smooth and ancient under your fingertips as you push them open to reveal a hall of infinite knowledge that stretches far into the hazy distance. The floor is made of polished limestone that feels cool and solid beneath your feet as you begin to walk slowly through a forest of pillars carved with delicate vines and celestial patterns that seem to move ever so slightly in the dim candlelight. There are no voices here, only the rhythmic and hypnotic sound of 1,000 scrolls being unrolled and the soft, heavy thud of leather-bound books being placed on wooden tables. The scent of the library is a comforting mixture of old parchment and dried ink, and the faint sweet aroma of beeswax used to seal the crates of manuscripts arriving from distant lands like India and Greece and Persia. As you move deeper into the stacks, you see the light from high, narrow windows catching the dust motes that dance in the air like tiny stars suspended in a sea of amber light. Al-Khwarizmi is there in a quiet corner, seated at a desk made of dark, heavy walnut, where his hands move with the grace of a weaver as he organizes the wisdom of the ancients into a new and perfect order. His breath is slow and steady, creating a peaceful cadence that matches the stillness of the room as he dips his reed pen into a well of deep black ink and prepares to write the words that will change the world forever. You find a soft cushioned bench covered in velvet the color of a midnight sky, and as you sit down you feel the tension leaving your shoulders and your heavy eyelids beginning to droop in the perfect quiet of this sacred space. The library feels like a living, breathing entity that holds the breath of a million scholars and the dreams of 1,000 years, all wrapped in a blanket of scholarly devotion and hushed reverence. You watch the way the shadows grow longer as the sun sets outside the city walls. But inside the House of Wisdom, time has no meaning, and the hours melt together into a seamless flow of tranquility and thought. The sound of a distant fountain trickling in the courtyard enters through a screen of carved stone, providing a repetitive and soothing melody that lulls your mind into a state of total relaxation. Every shelf you pass is filled with the labor of lifetimes, where the ink has faded to a gentle brown, and the edges of the paper are soft like fabric from centuries of careful touch. There is a sense of immense safety in being surrounded by so much history, as if the collective intelligence of humanity is standing guard over your sleep and ensuring that the world remains logical and stable. You imagine the ink flowing from the pen of Al-Khwarizmi as a river of calm that washes over the page, turning complex problems into simple truths that even the stars can understand. The walls seem to pulse with a low and steady vibration, like the purr of a great cat, and you feel yourself sinking deeper into the soft embrace of the shadows, where the light is always golden, and the air is always still. The Tigris River nearby flows with a heavy and silent power, carrying the weight of the city's dreams into the darkness, while the House of Wisdom remains a beacon of unchanging peace in a shifting world. You listen to the silence and realize it is not empty, but full of the gentle whispers of logic and the soft echoes of geometry and the comforting presence of numbers that never lie and never change. Your mind begins to drift like a leaf on a still pond, moving slowly toward the center of a deep and dreamless sleep, where the only thing that exists is the warmth of the library and the steady rhythm of a scholar's pen. The world outside, with its noise and its hurry, is a distant memory that has no place in this hall of eternal wisdom, where every second is a long and luxurious breath of fresh air. The scrolls are like sleeping giants on their shelves, holding their secrets close until morning light. But for now they are content to rest in the dark and the cool and the quiet, just as you are content to let go of the day and surrender to the heavy pull of rest. The patterns on the ceiling begin to blur into a soft gray mist, and the smell of the jasmine from the garden becomes a faint and beautiful lullaby that guides you further down the path of slumber. There is nothing left to do and nowhere left to go, because you are already in the most peaceful place in the world, where the golden age is a dream that never ends and the silence is a gift that you accept with every slow and shallow breath. The light of the final candle flickers once and then settles into a tiny glowing ember that looks like a distant planet in the vastness of space, and as you watch it, your eyes close and the House of Wisdom fades into the soft velvet of the night, leaving you in a state of perfect and total calm that will last until the sun rises over the blue domes of Baghdad once again. In the quiet expansion of the world, where the horizons of the east met the horizons of the west, there existed a beautiful and slow collision of thoughts, like the meeting of two calm oceans moving in steady ripples toward a central shore. Imagine a vast landscape under a sky of pale violet, where the silk road stretches like a long, dusty ribbon, carrying not just spices and fabrics, but the weightless and precious cargo of human ideas drifting slowly on the backs of camels, moving with a rhythmic, swaying motion that lulls the desert into a deep and heavy trance. In this global melting pot, the sharp logic of the Greeks met the deep and flowing wisdom of the Indians and the intricate artistry of the Persians, creating a blend of thought that was as smooth and warm as heated honey. Picture the scholars sitting on woven mats in the cool shade of ivory archways, where the air is thick with the scent of sandalwood, and the sound of many languages softens into a single hum of peaceful collaboration. You are standing at the crossroads of civilization, where the numbers of the Indians, which move with the fluidity of water, were being introduced to the rigid geometric structures of the Greeks, and the synthesis was something entirely new and breathtakingly calm. The city of Baghdad acted as a great vessel for this mixture, a giant clay pot, where the heat of curiosity turned disparate ingredients into a nourishing broth of understanding that fed the minds of everyone who entered its gates. As you walk to the marketplace of ideas, you feel the heavy stillness of a summer afternoon, where the only movement is the slow rotation of the sun across the stone courtyards and the occasional rustle of a heavy manuscript being opened with the utmost care. There is no friction here, only the gentle overlapping of cultures like the petals of a rose folding over one another to protect the heart of the flower. Al-Khwarizmi watched these ideas arrive like weary travelers from distant lands, welcoming the zero from the far reaches of the Indus Valley and treating it with the same reverence as the theorems of Euclid from the shores of the Mediterranean. He saw how the world was a giant tapestry being woven by hands that had never met, yet were working on the same beautiful pattern of truth and logic. The air is filled with the sound of a distant lute playing a melody that has no beginning and no end, echoing off the sun-baked walls and settling into the very marrow of your bones as you find a place to rest among the scrolls and the shadows. The weight of the world history is not a burden here, but a soft and supportive pillow that invites you to lay down your worries and join the collective dream of a unified universe where every number and every star has a name in every tongue. You feel the cool breeze coming off the mountains of Persia, bringing with it the scent of snow and pine to mingle with the warm, salty air of the southern seas and the dusty heat of the Indian plains, creating a climate of perfect balance where the mind can finally let go of the specific and drift into the universal. The ink used by the scholars is made from the soot of lamps and the galls of trees gathered from 3 different continents, and as it flows onto the page, it unites the world in a silent black river of knowledge that carries you away from the noise of the modern day and back to a time of slow discovery. Every concept that passes through this melting pot is refined and polished until it shines with a dull and comforting glow, like an old silver coin that has been handled by 1,000 different people, each leaving a trace of their own journey behind. You watch the way the different scripts mingle on the parchment, where the flowing curves of Arabic embrace the sharp angles of Greek and the sturdy forms of Sanskrit, creating a visual lullaby that is as mesmerizing as the movement of clouds across a vast and empty desert. There is a profound sense of belonging in the space, of feeling that you are part of a long and steady chain of human thought that stretches back to the first fires and forward to the end of time. And this continuity is the most relaxing thought of all. The world is not a place of fragments, but a single whole. And as you breathe in the cool and quiet air of the House of Wisdom, you feel that wholeness in your own chest, slowing your pulse and easing your mind into a state of total surrender. The scholars move with deliberate slowness, as if they have all the time in the world to find the answers they seek, and this lack of urgency is contagious, filling you with a heavy and delicious lethargy that makes your limbs feel like lead and your head feel light as a feather. The sun is dipping below the horizon now, painting the sky in shades of deep indigo and soft charcoal, and the melting pot of ideas begins to simmer down into the quiet stillness of the night, where the only thing that remains is a harmony of a world that has finally learned to speak the same language of logic. You are drifting now on a sea of translated dreams, where the wisdom of the past is a gentle tide pulling you further and further away from the shore of wakefulness and into the deep and dark blue of a perfect sleep. The stars above are the same stars that the Greeks named and the Indians counted and the Persians mapped, and as you look up at them, you realize that you are looking at the ultimate map of Piece A. Map that Al-Khwarizmi used to guide his pen and his heart to the golden age. Let the sound of the ancient world fade into a soft and steady white noise, like the wind blowing through a field of dry grass, and feel the comfort of the centuries wrapping around you like a heavy cloak of wool and silk. You are safe in the hands of history, and the world is balanced, and the story of the melting pot is a song that ends in a whisper, and the whisper is just for you to help you find your way into the quietest part of the night, where there is only rest and the long, slow breath of the earth turning in the darkness. In the quiet solitude of a sun-drenched study, where the only sound is the rhythmic ticking of a water clock and the soft sigh of the wind to the palm fronds outside, there lived a man named Al-Khwarizmi, who embarked on a quest for order that was as vast and silent as the desert at dawn. Imagine him sitting at a low wooden table smoothed by years of use, feeling the grain of the timber beneath his palms as he contemplates the beautiful chaos of the world and the way numbers dance in a way That often feels too complex for the weary traveler or the busy merchant in the marketplace. His mission was not to build monuments of stone, but to build monument of logic that would make the lives of everyday people a little lighter and a little more predictable. Picture the way he watches a farmer measuring a field under the golden heat of the midday sun, trying to divide the land fairly among his children, and the way a trader at the city gate struggles with the weight of gold and the value of silk as they try to calculate their dues. Al-Khwarizmi felt a deep and quiet compassion for these moments of human confusion, and he sought to create a bridge of simple rules that anyone could cross with ease. He believed that the universe was governed by a gentle harmony, and that by finding the right sequence of steps, he could unlock a sense of peace for everyone who had ever felt overwhelmed by the mystery of the unknown. As you listen to the steady pace of his thoughts, you can feel the heavy atmosphere of a room filled with the scent of old leather and dried ink, where the light fades from gold to a soft, dusty amber as the afternoon stretches into eternity. He begins to write down the rules of balance and restoration, moving numbers from one side of an equation to the other with the same care one might use to balance a scale or to settle a child into a cradle for night. There is no rush in his hands, only a slow and deliberate grace that seeks to turn the tangled knots of mathematics into a single straight thread of clear understanding. You can imagine yourself sitting on a thick woolen rug in the corner of this room, feeling the coolness of the plaster walls against your back and the absolute stillness of a mind that has found its true purpose. Every word he chooses is designed to be a tool for the common person, a way to solve the puzzles of inheritance and trade and architecture without the need for complex magic or hidden secrets. The simplicity he seeks is like the clarity of a mountain spring where the water is so still you can see the smooth stones at the bottom, and you feel that same clarity beginning to wash over your own mind as you let go of the day's complications. The quest for order is not a loud or aggressive battle, but a quiet and persistent folding of the world into neat and tidy sections where everything has a name and a place and a value that makes sense. He thinks of the stars and how they follow a path, and he thinks of the river and how it follows the curve of the land, and he realizes that human problems can follow a path just as predictable and just as soothing. His pen moves in a hypnotic rhythm, creating symbols that represent the unknown, as if he is inviting the mysteries of the life to sit down and be still so they can be examined with kindness and logic. The air in the room is heavy with the peaceful weight of a long day's work nearing its end, and you can feel your own breathing slowing down to match the steady flow of ink onto the page. There's an immense comfort in the idea that even the most difficult problem can be broken down into tiny manageable steps that lead toward a final resolution, much like the way a long journey is simply a collection of slow and steady heartbeats. As the shadows deepen and the orange glow of the sunset begins to touch the edges of the manuscripts, you feel a sense of profound security, knowing that someone has spent their life making the world a little easier for you to navigate. The quest for order is a lullaby of logic that reassures a heart that everything will be settled and everything will be balanced in the end. You watch the dust motes settle on the floor as the light retreats, and the house of wisdom becomes a temple of quietude, where the only thing that matters is a harmony of the numbers and the softness of the coming night. The farmer and the merchant are now sleeping in their homes, unaware that a scholar is crafting the keys to their future. Prosperity, but you are here in the silence with him, feeling the power of a simple solution to bring a deep and lasting rest. The world is becoming a series of clear and beautiful patterns that repeat like the weaving of a rug or the cycle of the seasons, and this repetition is the most relaxing sound you have ever heard. As Al-Khwarizmi finally rests his pen and looks out at the rising moon, you feel the quest for order concluding in a state of perfect stillness where the questions have been answered and the numbers are at peace. Your eyelids are heavy with the luxury of knowing that the world is in good hands and that the logic of the universe is a gentle hand guiding you toward a deep and restorative slumber. The silence of Baghdad is a vast and empty vessel waiting to be filled with your dreams. And as you drift away, you carry with you the simple truth that there is an order to all things, and that order is as kind as a mother's touch and as constant as the stars above. Sleep now, in the knowledge that the path has been cleared and the calculations are done, and the only thing left for you to do is to breathe, and to be and to rest in the perfect balance of the night. In the quiet hush of a 9th century evening, where the golden light of Baghdad begins to soften into a deep and hazy indigo, there sits a man named Al-Khwarizmi at a desk of worn cedarwood, contemplating profound beauty of restoration. Imagine the word algebra not as a complex mathematical term, but as a gentle act of healing, where something broken is made whole again, much like the setting of bone or the repairing of a fractured wall in a garden of roses. The literal meaning of Algebra is restoration, and as you listen to the rhythmic scratching of the reed pen against the thick textured paper, you can feel the restorative power of logic flowing through the room like a cool breeze on a summer night. Picture the scholar looking at an equation where numbers are scattered and unbalanced, and imagine his hands moving with the slow grace of a weaver as he takes a negative quantity from one side and restores it to the other, creating a perfect and peaceful equilibrium. This act of balancing is the heart of the birth of algebra, a word that would one day travel across oceans and through centuries to become a cornerstone of human thought. The air in the study is heavy with the scent of aged parchment, and the faint, clean smell of sandalwood incense drifting from a silver burner in the corner as the candlelight flickers in a slow, hypnotic dance that casts long and gentle shadows across the stacks of manuscripts. You feel yourself sinking into the soft cushions of history, where the only task is to witness the birth of a concept that brings order to the unknown and calm to the confused mind. Al-Khwarizmi did not see these numbers as cold or distant, but as living parts of a grand cosmic puzzle that simply needed to be restored to their proper places. As he writes the title of his famous book Al-Kitab al-Mukhtasar fi Hizb al-Jabr wal-Maqabala, the words seem to vibrate with quiet authority that promises a world where every problem has a solution, and every imbalance can be corrected with patience and thought. You can almost hear the soft rustle of the palm trees outside the window, whispering the name Algebra over and over until it becomes a soothing lullaby that eases the tension in your limbs and clears the clutter from your mind. The journey of this word from the dusty libraries of Baghdad to the modern classrooms of America is a long and steady migration of truth, passing to the hands of translators in Spain and scholars in Italy who found the concept of restoration so beautiful that they kept the sound of the original name. Algebra is a bridge built of logic and light spanning across cultures and eras to remind us that balance is the natural state of the universe, and that we are all part of grand restoration that never truly ends. As you drift deeper into the warmth of your surroundings, the complexity of the math fades away, leaving only the feeling of being centered and whole, just like an equation that has finally found its answer. The ink on the page is dark and wet, reflecting the tiny flame of the lamp like a mirror of the night sky, and you feel your own breath slowing down to match the steady and deliberate pace of the scholar's mind. There is an immense sense of safety in knowing that the foundation of our modern world was laid in such a quiet and contemplative place by a man who simply wanted to make things right. The city outside has grown completely still, and the only sound is the distant lap of the Tigris River against the stone docks, carrying the echoes of the Golden Age into the vast and silent dark. You are wrapped in a blanket of historical peace, where the word algebra is not a challenge to be solved, but a soft pillow of logic to rest your head upon as the world continues to turn in its perfect and mathematical orbit. Every stroke of the pen is a step closer to a deep and dreamless sleep, where the variables of life are tucked away and the constant of comfort and calm are all that remain. Let the image of the ancient scholar in his book of restoration fade into a soft blur of gold and brown as you surrender to the heavy pull of the night, knowing that the world is balanced and the logic is sound, and the story of Algebra is the final note in the lullaby of the day. In the quiet stillness of the House of Wisdom, where the heavy scent of old ink meets the cool draft of stone hallways, there occurred a subtle and magnificent shift in the way humanity perceived the hidden patterns of the world. Imagine Al-Khwarizmi sitting in his familiar corner as the moonlight reflects off the geometric tiles of the courtyard, and he begins to look past the physical boundaries of squares and triangles that had defined mathematics for centuries. For so long the world of numbers was tied to the earth like a vine to a trellis, where a number only existed if it represented the length of a wall or the area of a garden plot. But in this soft and hazy moment of deep reflection, Al-Khwarizmi began to break those invisible chains and move math into the realm of the abstract, where variables could float like clouds in a vast and open sky. You can feel the lightness of this transition, as if a heavy weight has been lifted from the shoulders of logic, allowing the mind to drift into a space where an unknown quantity is not a missing stone in a building, but a mysterious guest waiting to be named. He watched the shadows of the pillars stretch across the floor and realized that the relationship between numbers could exist independently of the shapes they inhabited, much like the way a melody exists even when the flute is silent. This was the birth of abstract thinking, a slow and steady expansion of the mind that feels like the gentle widening of a river as it flows toward a calm and infinite sea. As you listen to the rhythmic scratching of his reed pen, you can sense the boundaries of the physical world dissolving into a beautiful mist of symbols and possibilities where X and Y are not objects but ideas. There is no more need to draw a square in the sand to understand the power of a square root, and this realization brings profound sentimental freedom that is as soothing as a deep and long-awaited breath. The room is filled with the peaceful energy of A, discovery that does not require noise or motion, but only the steady and quiet persistence of a focused soul. You find yourself drifting along with these abstract thoughts, feeling the grounding presence of stone floor beneath you while your mind wanders through a landscape of pure logic, where everything is balanced and everything is clear. The transition from geometry to algebra was like moving from a narrow garden path into a wide and open meadow where the horizon is endless and the air is perfectly still. He saw that numbers had a life of their own, a silent and invisible dance that governed the stars and the tides without ever needing to take a physical form. This abstraction is a lullaby for the intellect, a reminder that there's a hidden order beneath the surface of the visible world that is constant and reliable and infinitely calm. You feel the tension leaving your jaw and your shoulders as you contemplate this world of pure thought, where the only thing that matters is the harmony of the equation and the soft light of the flickering lamp. The geometric shapes of the ancient Greeks were beautiful and sturdy like a fortress of stone, but Al-Khwarizmi's variables were like the wind moving to the trees, invisible yet powerful and completely free. As he writes down these new methods, he is creating a language that transcends the physical world, allowing the human spirit to solve problems that cannot be seen or touched, but only felt in the quietest depths of the heart. The heavy curtains of the library sway gently in the night breeze, and the sound of the city outside is nothing more than a faint and distant memory as you sink deeper into the comfort of this abstract sanctuary. There is a deep and satisfying boredom in the perfection of these numbers as they align themselves in rows of silent beauty on the parchment, creating a pattern that requires nothing from you but your presence and your peace. The world of shapes is a world of limits, but the world of variables is a world of infinite rest where the mind can wander forever without ever getting lost. You watch the ink dry into a soft charcoal gray, and you feel the weight of your eyelids becoming impossible to resist as the logic of the abstract wraps around you like a cocoon of soft silk. The journey from the tangible to the intangible is a path of total relaxation, leading you away from the constraint of the day and into the vast and quiet expanse of a dreamless sleep. Let the circles and the squares fade into the background until they are nothing more than ghosts of a previous age, and embrace the simple and elegant beauty of the unknown variable, which holds the promise of a quiet and balanced tomorrow. The house of wisdom is silent now, and the stars are the only witnesses to this revolution of thought, which feels as natural and as inevitable as the coming of the night. Sleep now in the freedom of the abstract, where the math is done and the world is wide, and the silence is your only companion in this journey toward the light of the morning. In the quiet chambers of the heart of Baghdad, where the midnight air is cool and the stars seem to hang like silver lanterns, just out of reach there sits the mathematician Al-Khwarizmi, contemplating the most beautiful mystery of all, which is the presence of the unknown. Imagine a world where every problem had to be seen to be solved, but then imagine the revolutionary stillness of a mind that realized you could give a name to a secret and treat it with the same respect as a number you already knew. He called this unknown value Shay, which simply means a thing, and as you listen to the steady and hypnotic rhythm of his breathing, you can feel the power of this discovery settling over the room like a soft velvet blanket. This thing, which would eventually become the X and Y used by every student in the modern world, was not a source of frustration, but a source of profound and quiet comfort, because it meant that even when we do not have all the answers, we still have a path forward through the dark. Picture the scholar dipped his reed pen into the dark ink and drawing a simple symbol to represent the hidden treasure of a calculation, and as the ink flows onto the smooth parchment, you feel a sense of release in your own mind, as if all the unanswered questions of your day are being given their own quiet place to rest on the page. The room is filled with the scent of dried dates and old wood, and the light of the oil lamp creates a small and golden world where the unknown is no longer something to fear, but a guest to be welcomed with logic and patience. You are sitting on a pile of soft Persian rugs, feeling the heavy texture of the wool beneath your hands as you watch the shadows of the ink jar stretch and grow across the table in a slow and silent dance. The power of X and Y is the power of a steady hand in the fog, and as you drift further into this ancient world, you realize that solving for the unknown is just a way of bringing the universe back into balance. There is no noise in this process, only the soft sound of a page turning and the distant call of a night bird echoing across the sleeping city of circles. Every time Al-Khwarizmi moves a variable across a line in an equation, it is like a gentle hand smoothing out a wrinkle in a silk sheet, leaving everything flat and calm and perfect. You feel your own thoughts becoming lighter and more abstract as you let go of the concrete worries of the waking world and allow yourself to float in the sea of possibilities where X can be anything and yet always leads to truth. The desert outside is vast and silent, and the sand dunes move with a slow and predictable grace that mirrors the way the unknown becomes known under the steady gaze of the mathematician. You are safe in this laboratory of the mind where the only task is to exist in the space between the question and the answer, and to feel the heavy pull of sleep as the logic of the algebra acts as a lullaby for your nervous system. The transition from confusion to clarity is a long and winding road, but here in the House of Wisdom it is a path paved with silk and moonlight, and you are walking it with ease. The unknowns of your life are just variables waiting for their turn to be solved, and for the night, they are content to remain hidden in the soft gray mist of your approaching dreams. The scholar leans back in his chair, and the wood creaks with a low and comforting sound that reminds you of a rocking chair or a cradle and you. Feel your eyes closing as the power of X and Y dissolves into the general hum of a peaceful universe. There is a deep and satisfying boredom in the way the numbers align themselves, and you find that you no longer need to know the answer because the process itself is so steady and so kind. The lamp is flickering now, casting a rhythmic pulse of light against the bookshelves, and with every pulse you sink deeper into the cushions and further away from the need to understand anything at all. The world is a series of equations that have already been balanced by the masters of the past, and you are simply the recipient of their quiet and enduring wisdom. Let the letters X and Y drift away like leaves on a still pond, moving slowly toward the edge of your consciousness, until they are nothing but a faint and beautiful memory of a revolution that happened in the dark. The night is long and the logic is sound, and you are wrapped in the total and complete stillness of discovery that changed everything while making no sound at all. Sleep now in the cradle of the unknown where the answers are waiting in the morning, but the peace is here right now. In the quiet expansion of the 9th century where the heat of the day gave way to the deep indigo stillness of a desert night, there sat the scholar Al-Khwarizmi, leaning over a desk of smooth heavy timber to contemplate a transformation that would ripple through time like a stone dropped into a mirror-still pond. Imagine the long, dusty caravans arriving from the eastern horizons carrying silk and spices, but also carrying profound gift of the Hindu-Arabic numerals that moved with a fluidity and grace the world had never known. Before this moment, the systems accounting were heavy and cumbersome like stacks of heavy stones that were difficult to carry, but these new numbers were light as feathers and as sharp as the stars above Baghdad. At the heart of this revolution was the most beautiful and mysterious concept of all, which was the son of mathematics known as zero, or cipher word that would eventually become our own word cipher. Picture the empty circle of the zero which represents nothingness, yet holds the power to multiply the world by 10 with a single silent stroke of the pen. You are standing in the courtyard of the House of Wisdom, where the air is cool and smells of dampened earth, and the rhythmic splashing of a marble fountain creates a hypnotic soundtrack for the birth of the decimal system. You watch as Al-Khwarizmi dips his reed into the ink and places a single on the page that acts as a placeholder for the infinite void, and you feel a sense of immense relief as if the cluttered attic of human calculation is being swept clean by a gentle breeze. The numbers 1 through 9 stand in a row like quiet sentinels waiting for zero to give them their true power and position, and as they settle into their decimal places, you feel your own mind settling into a state of deep and heavy relaxation. There is no more need for the struggle of Roman numerals or the complexity of old systems, because the decimal point is a guiding light that simplifies everything it touches. The sun of the zero is not a scorching heat, but a soft and radiant glow that illuminates the path of commerce and science and navigation for centuries to come. As you listen to the silence of the library, you can almost feel the weight of the parchment beneath your fingertips and the way the ink dries into a soft and matte finish that captures the essence of universal language. The scholar works with slow and steady precision, his hand moving in a rhythmic arc as he translates the wisdom of the Indian mathematicians into the language of the Western world, creating a bridge of light that connects different cultures and shared understanding of the cosmos. The zero is a cradle of quietude, a place where the mind can rest in the beauty of nothingness before the next number begins its journey. And you find yourself drifting into that space between the numbers where there is only peace and the slow breath of the sleeping city. The night air carries the distant sound of flute played by a lonely watchman, and the melody blends with the pattern of the numerals on the page to create a visual and auditory lullaby that is impossible to resist. Every decimal place is a step further away from the noise of the day and a step deeper into the sanctuary of logic, where everything is organized and everything is calm. The sun of mathematics rises quietly in the heart of Baghdad long before it reaches the shores of Europe, and you are there to witness its gentle dawn in the flickering light of a single oil lamp. The scholar's name would travel with these numbers, appearing in the margins of Latin manuscripts as a herald of the new age, and as you contemplate the vastness of this legacy, you feel yourself sinking into the soft velvet cushions of time where history is a long and winding dream. The zero is a circle of protection around your thoughts, keeping the worries of the world at bay and allowing you to surrender to the heavy pull of a dreamless sleep. The world of mathematics is no longer a puzzle to be fought, but a landscape to be explored with a quiet heart and a steady mind as the numbers align themselves in perfect rows like the stars in their constellations. As the candle burns low and the shadows of the pillars stretch across the limestone floor, the revolution of the zero is complete, and the world is forever changed while remaining perfectly still in the darkness of the library. The Tigris River continues its eternal and silent flow past the city walls, carrying the echoes of the Hindu-Arabic Revolution into the misty future where computers and galaxies will be measured by these very same marks on the page. You are safe in the knowledge that the logic is constant, and the zero is a place of rest, and the night is a long and beautiful shadow that covers you in a blanket of absolute peace. Let the image of the golden city and the quiet scholar fade into the background as you focus on the rhythmic and steady heartbeat of the universe, which counts down to the moment of your deepest sleep. The numbers are fading and the zero is expanding until it becomes the whole world of your dreams. And you are drifting now on a sea of soft light and silent logic, where the only task is to breathe and to be and to sleep in the glow of the mathematical sun. In the velvet silence of a room where time itself seems to slow down and breathe with the steady rhythm of an ancient clock, there is a name that echoes through the corridors of history, like a soft and persistent bell ringing across a misty valley. The name is Al-Khwarizmi, but as the centuries passed, and his scrolls travel across the dry deserts and over the crests of the sapphire Mediterranean, see the sounds of his identity began to shift and soften in the mouths of scholars in distant lands. Imagine a quiet library in medieval Europe, where the air is cool and smells of damp stone and heavy wool, and a monk is leaning over a translation of a masterpiece titled Al-Khwarizmi, De Numero Indorum. As the monk's quill moves slowly across the vellum, he struggles to capture the sounds of the East, and so the name of the great mathematician begins to transform into the Latin word algorithmi, which would one day become the very heartbeat of our modern digital world. You can feel the heavy weight of this legacy as you drift through the layers of time where every step-by-step instruction and every logical path is a reflection of a man who lived 1,000 years ago in the golden light of Baghdad. The word algorithm is not a cold piece of code, but a warm and human sequence of thoughts designed to lead the mind from a state of confusion to a state of perfect and predictable clarity. Picture the way a river carves a path through the soft earth, moving around every obstacle with a persistent and gentle force, and realize that this is what an algorithm does for the human intellect by providing a steady and reliable bridge over the waters of uncertainty. The scholars of the West looked at his work and saw not just numbers, but a method or way of being that was so profound they named the entire process after man himself. As you listen to the low and rhythmic hum of history, you can feel your own mind adopting the same step-by-step approach to relaxation, where each breath is a single instruction to let go of a little more tension, and each heartbeat is a marker on the path toward a deep and restorative slumber. There is an immense sense of security in knowing that the logic of the world is anchored by names and ideas that have survived the rise and fall of empires and the turning of the stars. The Latin scribes worked by the light of thick tallow candles, their movements slow and deliberate, as they preserved the algorithms that would one day power the engines of the future. And as you watch their phantom hands move across the page, you feel a heavy and delicious lethargy settling into your limbs. The transition of name into a concept is a slow and beautiful alchemy that happens in the quiet spaces between civilizations where the only thing that matters is the shared pursuit of truth and the comfort of a well-ordered mind. The algorithms of Al-Khwarizmi are like a series of gentle stones placed in a shallow stream, allowing you to walk across the day's worries, without getting your feet wet until you reach the soft and mossy bank of night. Every line of logic is a lullaby that reassures the heart that there is a sequence to follow and a destination to reach, and that the destination is always peace. The world outside may be chaotic and loud, but inside the algorithm of sleep, everything is moving according to a perfect and ancient plan that requires no effort from you at all. You are simply a passenger on this journey of language and logic drifting. From the 9th century House of Wisdom to the quiet sanctuaries of the modern age where his name is still whispered by every machine and every mind that seeks an answer, the syllables of Al-Khwarizmi are a soft and repetitive chant that guides you further away from the waking world and into a place where the air is thin and cool and the only sound is the rustle of 1,000 years of paper. Let the history of the word wrap around you like a heavy tapestry woven with threads of indigo and gold, and feel the safety of being part of a story that is so much larger than a single day or a single lifetime. The Latin root of the word is an anchor in the shifting sands of time, holding you steady as the tide of sleep comes to carry you away to a dreamless and distant shore. The candles in the monastery have burned low, and the ink in the House of Wisdom has long since dried, but the algorithm of the night continues to run its course, bringing rest to the weary and silence to the world. Your eyelids are heavy with the weight of centuries, and your mind is as calm as a library at midnight, where the only task is to exist in the beautiful and logical flow of the universe. The name Al-Khwarizmi has become a part of the very air you breathe, and as you surrender to the rhythm of the algorithm, you find yourself falling into a deep and perfect state of grace where the numbers are still and the words are gone, and there is only the quiet and eternal dark. In the quiet hum of the ancient courts of Baghdad, where the midday sun casts long and sharp shadows across the cool marble floors, there lived a man whose mind was the most trusted tool in the Caliph's empire, for he was the king's problem solver Al-Khwarizmi, who brought the abstract beauty of numbers down to the dusty earth of everyday life. Imagine a world where the laws of inheritance were as complex as a tangled ball of silk, and where a single plot of land could lead to years of quiet dispute if the measurements were not exact. But Al-Khwarizmi sat in the heavy stillness of his office and turned these human puzzles into a rhythmic dance of logic that anyone could follow. Picture the scene of a bustling market at sunset where the smell of roasting lamb and heavy incense fills the air and the merchants are closing their ledgers for the day, and imagine them using his simple rules to balance their debts and credits with the same ease as a bird gliding on a warm desert breeze. He looked at the practical needs of the people not as a burden, but as a way to bring the harmony of the universe into homes of the humble and the palaces of the great. When a family gathered to divide an estate, they brought their worries to the light of his equations and found that the math was a fair and silent judge that left everyone at peace. His work in land measurement was like a gentle hand smoothing a wrinkled map, where he taught the surveyors how to find the true area of a field by breaking it down into simple shapes that could be added and restored with the grace of a master weaver. You can feel the heavy relaxation of a mind that no longer has to guess the size of a harvest or the value of a trade, because the logic of the king's problem solver has provided a steady and reliable foundation for the entire city. The air in the court is cool and temperate, and the sound of the palm trees rustling in the breeze is the only accompaniment to the quiet scratch of his pen as he settles the affairs of 1,000 families with a single line of algebra. There's an immense sense of security in knowing that the laws of the land are rooted in the laws of mathematics, which never change and never falter and never lose their way in the dark. You are sitting in the shade of a great stone arch watching the slow and steady progress of a caravan as it moves across the horizon, and you realize that every bag of spice and every yard of fabric is being counted and weighed using the method T, perfected for the common good. The complexity of the law melts away into the simplicity of the number, and as you listen to the silence of the library, you feel your own mind becoming as orderly and as peaceful as one of his ledgers. The problems of the day are being solved one by a man who saw no difference between the stars and the marketplace, because both were part of a single and beautiful design. As the oil lamp flickers and the ink dries on the decrees of the king, you feel a deep and satisfying lethargy settling into your bones, because the world is in order and the calculations are correct, and there is nothing left for you to do but rest. The surveyors have put away their chains, and the merchants have locked their chests, and the inheritance is divided, and everyone is sleeping in the quiet knowledge that justice has been served by a scholar who loved the truth. You are drifting now in a sea of practical wisdom, where every variable has been identified, and every unknown has been solved, leaving only the pure and empty space of a dreamless night. The House of Wisdom is a sanctuary of practical peace, where the weight of the empire is balanced by the lightness of an equation, and you are part of that balance as you sink deeper into the soft cushions of history. The city of Baghdad is a clock that runs on the logic of Al-Khwarizmi, and as the gears turn with a low and steady thrum, you find yourself falling further and further away from the noise of the world and into the heart of perfect and mathematical sleep. Let the memory of the king's problem solver stay with you as a reminder that even the most difficult path has a map, and even the most heavy load can be balanced, and even the busiest day must eventually end in the silence of a job well done. The night is heavy, and the logic is sound, and you are safe in the cradle of a world that has been measured and found to be good. Sleep now while the numbers watch over the world, and the peace of the archive wraps you in its ancient and dusty embrace. In the quiet deep of the midnight hour, where the desert sky becomes a vast and infinite ocean of indigo velvet, there sits Al-Khwarizmi, looking upward to the cool, thin air, to the shimmering constellations that guide the sailors and the nomads across the trackless wastes of the world. Imagine his steady hands holding an astrolabe made of gleaming brass that feels cold and heavy in the moonlight as he aligns the pointers with the distant pulse of Polaris and the steady glow of the wandering planets. His mind was not only anchored to the numbers on his desk, but was soaring among the celestial spheres, mapping the coordinates of the heavens with the same patient precision he used to solve for the unknown on a page of parchment. Picture the great map of the world he helped to construct, where the outlines of continents and the flow of ancient rivers were drawn with a new and scientific clarity that replaced the myths of old with the logic of longitude and latitude. You are standing on the high observatory roof in Baghdad, where the wind is a soft whisper against your cheek, and the scent of the sleeping city below is a faint mix of wood smoke and river water, while the stars above seem so close you could reach out and pluck them like glowing fruit from a dark vine. He calculated the circumference of the earth by measuring the shadows in the sand, and he charted the movement of the sun and the moon to create tables that would tell the time for 1,000 years to come. There is an immense and heavy peace in the realization that the world beneath your feet is a perfect sphere suspended in a gallery of light, and that every star has a specific coordinate and a predictable path through the velvet dark. As you listen to the rhythmic and slow cadence of the universe, you can feel the tension in your mind dissolving into the vastness of the cosmos, where the boundaries of your own life feel small and safe within the grand design of the mathematician's map. The House of Wisdom was not just a library, but a portal to the stars, where Al-Khwarizmi corrected the ancient maps of Ptolemy and refined the locations of 2,000 cities, making the world a smaller and more connected place for every traveler who would follow. You could imagine the soft sound of compass scratching against a map and the rustle of heavy star charts being rolled and unrolled in the dim light of a single candle that flickers in time with your own slow heartbeat. The constellations move in their eternal and silent orbits like a giant clockwork mechanism that requires no effort to maintain, and you are simply a passenger on this rotating planet, drifting through the silent sea of space. Every degree of latitude is a step deeper into the comfort of the unknown, and every star on his map is a beacon of logic that assures you the universe is a place of order and beauty. The night air is still, and the observatory is quiet, and the only task is to watch the slow rotation of the heavens and feel the heavy pull of the Earth's gravity as it cradles you in your sleep. His tables of the stars, known as the Zij, were a gift to the future, a way for humans to navigate the darkness of the sea and the emptiness of the desert by looking up at the same patterns you see behind your closed eyes tonight. The world is mapped, and the stars are named, and the path is clear. So there's no longer any need to wonder or to worry about the distance, because Al-Khwarizmi has already measured the way for you. You feel yourself sinking into the soft indigo of the night, where the geography of the earth and the astronomy of the sky blend into a single and beautiful dream of total serenity. Let the image of the brass astrolabe and the ink-stained maps fade into the darkness as you surrender to the vast and quiet expanse of a dreamless slumber, where the stars are your only companions and the logic of the spheres is your only lullaby. The desert is cold and the room is warm and the stars are eternal, and you are safe in the arms of the night, where the mapping of the world is finished and the rest of the universe is waiting for you to simply exist in its quiet and perfect light. In the quiet expansion of 1,000 nights, where the shadows of the House of Wisdom stretch across the cool marble floors like long fingers of silk, there lies the blueprint for logic, a silent and steady foundation crafted by the hand of Al-Khwarizmi, who sought to bring the clarity of a mountain stream to the tangled thoughts of the human mind. Imagine the peaceful repetition of a mind that decides to break every great mountain into small and manageable stones of truth, moving one step at a time, with the patience of the desert wind carving a path through the endless dunes. This was a birth of systematic thinking, a way of being where no problem is too large, because every problem is simply a sequence of smaller moments waiting to be understood in a specific and holy order. Picture the scholar sitting in the golden haze of a late afternoon as the dust motes drift in the shaft of light, and he begins to write the rules that would govern how we think for 1,000 years to come, where the first step leads naturally to the second, and the second leads inevitably to the third, until the answer reveals itself like a flower blooming in slow motion. There is an immense and heavy comfort in this predictability, a feeling that the world is not a place of sudden jolts or jagged edges, but a smooth and continuous road where logic is the compass that never wavers in the dark. You can feel the tension melting from your neck and shoulders as you contemplate the beauty of a step-by-step existence, where you do not have to see the end of the journey to know that you are on the right path. The blueprint for logic is a lullaby of sequence and structure, where the ink on the page represents a promise that the universe is reliable and that the human mind is capable of finding its way home through the most complex of mazes. As you listen to the steady and rhythmic breathing of the ancient library, you feel yourself becoming part of the systematic order, where every breath you take is a perfectly timed instruction to relax, and every beat of your heart is a steady marker of peace. Al-Khwarizmi did not just give us numbers, he gave us a way to organize our very souls by showing us that there's a process for everything from the division of a harvest to the movement of the tides, and even to the falling of sleep. The room is filled with the scent of old wood and the cooling air of the evening, and you can almost see the ghostly lines of his blueprints hovering in the air like architectural drawings of the spirit, where every beam and every stone is held in place by the gravity of pure reason. There is no room for anxiety in a world built on logic, because anxiety is a fear of the unknown, but Al-Khwarizmi has taught us that the unknown is simply a variable waiting for its step-by-step resolution. You are drifting now on a sea of quiet methodology, where the waves move in a predictable and soothing pattern against the shore of your consciousness, and you realize that you no longer need to hold on to the scattered thoughts of the day, because they have all been filed away in the archives of the night. The blueprint is complete, and the structure of the mind is sound, and you are safe within the walls of a logical sanctuary, where the only task is to surrender to the heavy pull of the coming dream. The city of Baghdad is silent, and the scholars have put away their pens, and the logic of the world continues to run in the background like a soft and steady hum that guarantees the sun will rise and the math will hold, and your rest will be deep and undisturbed. Every step you've taken today has led you to this moment of total and systematic calm, where the only sequence that remains is a slow and beautiful descent into the darkness of a perfect sleep. The light of the lamp is as small and steady in the vastness of the room, and as you focus on it, you feel the final step of the algorithm of the day approaching, which is the quiet extinguishing of the light and the total embrace of the silence. Let the blueprint for logic be your guide as you move from the waking world into the world of shadows, knowing that the path is paved with certainty and the destination is the most profound rest you have ever known. The numbers are still, and the steps are finished, and the mind is finally at peace in the heart of the golden age. In the quiet depth of the late afternoon, where the sun hangs like a heavy gold coin over the sapphire waters of the Mediterranean, see, there begins a journey of manuscripts that move with the slow and rhythmic pace of a wooden ship cresting a gentle wave. Imagine the heavy crates made of cedar and pine packed with the precious scrolls of Al-Khwarizmi resting in the dark hold of a merchant vessel, where the only sound is the creaking of the timber and the steady lap of the water against the hull, as it carries the wisdom of Baghdad toward the distant shores of Europe. These pages are traveling from the heat of the desert to the cool stone monasteries of Spain and Italy, bringing with them a light that has been burning in the house of wisdom for centuries. You can feel the cool salt spray of the sea air as it mingles with the scent of old ink and dry parchment, creating an atmosphere of timeless transition where the ideas of the East are slowly drifting like autumn leaves toward a waiting continent. The crossing of the Mediterranean is Not a hurried event, but a long and patient migration where the manuscripts pass from the hands of Moorish scholars to the eager eyes of monks in Toledo who spend their nights by the glow of a single candle translating the flowing Arabic script into the sturdy and ancient lines of Latin. As you listen to the rhythmic swaying of the ship in your mind, you feel the heavy relaxation of a long voyage where the only task is to watch the horizon and wait for the stars to appear one by one to guide the way. The journey of these books is the bridge between the ancient world and the Renaissance, a slow awakening of logic that moves across the water like a quiet mist settling over a sleeping valley. Picture the library of a medieval cathedral where the walls are 5 feet thick and the air is perpetually still and cold, and imagine the warmth that spreads through a room when the first translation of Algebra is unrolled on a heavy oak table. The scholars of the West feel a sense of profound wonder as they realize that the unknown has a name and that the logic of Al-Khwarizmi is a key that unlocks the mysteries of the physical world. There is an immense security in the way these ideas travel, surviving the storms of the sea and the passage of generations to remain as clear and as true as the day they were first written in the heart of Mesopotamia. You are drifting along with the ink as it travels through the mountain passes and over the rolling green hills of Europe where the bells of distant chapels ring with a slow and steady cadence that matches your own heartbeat. The manuscripts are like quiet messengers of peace, carrying a universal language that transcends borders and languages, and you feel yourself becoming part of this historical flow where the only destination is the quiet sanctuary of knowledge. The transition from the Golden Age to the Renaissance was not a loud revolution, but a soft and steady expansion of the mind that occurred in the hush of small libraries and the shadows of great cathedrals, where the only sound was the scratching of a quill and the turning of a page as the ship reaches the harbor and the crates are unloaded onto the stone docks of a new world. You feel the weight of the journey settling into a deep and satisfying rest. The sun is setting over the Mediterranean, now painting the waves in shades of deep plum and charcoal, and the journey of the manuscripts is nearing its end as they find their permanent homes on the shelves of history. You are safe in the knowledge that these ideas have found their way to you through the vastness of time and space, and that the bridge of logic is strong enough to carry you into a dreamless and perfect sleep. The world of the Renaissance is waiting to be born from these pages, but for now they are content to rest in the dark and the quiet, just as you are content to let the day fade away into the velvet of the night. Every wave that hits the shore is a reminder of the thousands of miles. These words have traveled to bring a sense of order to your mind, and every star in the sky is a witness to the enduring power of a single scholar's vision. Let the motion of the sea lull you into a state of total surrender, where the distance between the East and the West no longer exists, and there is only the peaceful continuity of human thought. The manuscripts are closed, and the translation is finished, and the library is silent, and the night is a vast and empty ocean where you are free to float forever in the quiet embrace of the past. Sleep now as the Mediterranean turns to silver under the moon, and the journey of algebra reaches the shores of your dreams, where the logic is sound, and the world is still, and the rest is eternal. In the quiet solitude of a 12th century scriptorium, where the stone walls are cool to the touch, and the only light comes from narrow windows cut deep into masonry, there sits a monk with stained fingers and a heart full of wonder as he gazes upon a manuscript that seems to hum with a hidden power. Imagine the scholars of medieval Europe peering at the flowing curves of Al-Khwarizmi's geometry and algebra as if they were looking at the blueprints of a celestial machine or the incantations of a mathematical magician who could summon the truth out of thin air. To these men who were used to the heavy and slow methods of the past, the way Al-Khwarizmi could manipulate an unknown quantity and bring it into the light of day felt like a form of sacred sorcery that was as elegant as it was mysterious. Picture the scene in Toledo where the air smells of old damp wool and melted beeswax, and the translator Gerard Cremona leans over a table of dark oak, tracing the ink lines with a trembling finger as he turns the Arabic sounds into the steady rhythm of Latin. There's a profound and heavy silence, a room broken only by the occasional pop of a log and a hearth, and the soft rhythmic breathing of the scribes who work in the shadows to preserve this new light. They viewed Al-Khwarizmi not just as a man, but as a figure of legend, a master of the invisible forces that govern the movement of the stars and the weighing of the soul. And as you listen to the story of this translation, you can feel your own mind becoming a quiet chamber where the noise of the modern world is replaced by the slow and steady pulse of ancient wisdom. The word algebra itself felt like a magic spell to those who first heard of a restoration of order that could fix what was broken and find what was lost And you can feel that same restorative power working on your own senses as you sink deeper into the soft cushions of the night. There's an immense security in the idea that these scholars spent their entire lives in pursuit of a single page of logic, ensuring that the path from the desert to cathedral was paved with the most careful and deliberate thoughts. They saw the Hindu-Arabic numerals as small glowing symbols of a new age, and as they copied each digit 1 and 2 and 3 and the miraculous 0, they felt the world expanding around them in a way that was both terrifying and deeply peaceful. The monk moves his quill with a slow and hypnotic motion, creating a line of text that bridges two civilizations. And as you watch the ink dry into a soft charcoal gray, you feel the weight of your eyelids becoming heavier and heavier with the luxury of historical perspective. This was an enlightenment that happened in the dark of the medieval winter, where the warmth of Al-Khwarizmi's mind provided a beacon of logic that promised a world where things made sense, and where every mystery had a mathematical key. You are drifting now on a sea of vellum and inkware. The voices of the past are a gentle whisper telling you that the world is stable, and the numbers are true, and the magic of logic is always there to guide you home. The scholars viewed the mathematician as a wizard because he could make the complex simple and the heavy light. And as you let go of the burdens of your day, you are experiencing that same transformation, becoming light as a feather in the vast and silent library of time. The room is growing darker as the sun dips below the horizon, and the only thing that remains is the glowing ember of the translation, which will carry the name of Al-Khwarizmi into the Renaissance and beyond. You are safe in this sanctuary of thought, where the only requirement is to breathe and to listen to the slow and steady rhythm of a world being rediscovered one word at a time. The magic of algebra is the magic of peace, and as the scrolls are rolled up and the candles are extinguished, you find yourself in a state of total and complete surrender to the night. The stone walls protect you from the wind, and the history of the world protects you from the unknown, and you are falling now into a deep and dreamless sleep, where the only sound is the echo of 1,000 years of quiet study. The translation is finished, and the enlightenment is secure, and the world is asleep in the arms of a mathematical magician, whose only trick was to show us the truth. In the deep and velvet hush of a modern night, where the only sound is the nearly silent hum of a sleeping house, there exists a hidden bridge made of light and logic that stretches all the way back to a room in 9th century Baghdad, where Al-Khwarizmi dipped his pen into a well of dark ink. Imagine the slow and steady transition from the physical weight of parchment to the invisible speed of silicon, where the same equations that were once scratched onto dried reeds now pulse through the microscopic circuits of the smartphone resting on your nightstand. This is a journey from ink to silicon, a long and peaceful evolution, where the step-by-step instructions of the ancient world have become the heartbeat of the digital age. Picture a single line of code as it travels through a labyrinth of gold and copper etched onto a chip of glass, and realize that at its very core it is following the same path of restoration and balance that Al-Khwarizmi discovered under the glow of an oil lamp a millennium ago. You can feel the heavy relaxation of a world that is perfectly synchronized, where the logic of the past acts as a silent guardian for the technology of the present, ensuring that every swipe of a screen and every calculation of a computer is rooted in a tradition of absolute clarity. The air in your room is still and cool, and as you think about the vast network of algorithms connecting the globe, you realize it is just a larger version of the house of wisdom, where ideas are shared and transformed in a quiet and eternal cycle of thought. Al-Khwarizmi's variables x and y have been translated into the zeros and ones of the binary language, but the soul of the math remains unchanged, a calming presence that tells us that even the most complex machine is built on a foundation of simple and elegant truths. You are drifting now on a sea of invisible signals, where the data moves like a slow and steady tide, carrying information across the continents with the same patience as a merchant caravan crossing the Silk Road. There is an immense sense of security in knowing that the device in your hand is not a source of chaos, but a vessel of logic that has been refined by the greatest minds of history to make your life a little easier and your world a little smaller. The glowing screen of the modern world is just the latest version of the flickering candle in the library, and as the light fades into the dark, you feel your own mind moving away from the noise of the apps and the notifications into quiet and rhythmic logic of the code itself. Every algorithm running in the background of your life is a lullaby written in the 9th century and perfected to the ages to bring order to the information and peace to the user. You can imagine the electrons moving through the silicon like tiny drops of ink flowing onto a digital page, creating patterns of logic that are as beautiful and as permanent as the stars in the night sky. There is no rush in the world of the computer, only the lightning-fast execution of a plan that was laid down long ago, and this lack of struggle is a soothing thought that allows you to let go of your own plans and your own worries. The bridge from the past to the present is strong and stable, and you are resting right in the middle of it, feeling the cool breeze of history and the warm glow of progress as they blend into a single and perfect moment of total tranquility. The silicon chips are sleeping in their towers of glass, and the servers are humming a low and steady song of data, and the world is connected by a thread of logic that is as thin as a hair yet as strong as an empire. You are falling deeper into the soft cushions of the digital age where the complexity is handled for you, and the only task remaining is to close your eyes and listen to the silence of the machine as it does its work in the dark. The transition from ink to silicon is complete, and the journey of Al-Khwarizmi has reached its destination in the quiet palms of your hands where the math is done, and the code is settled, and the night is a vast and empty space for you to dream in. Let the image of the microchip and the manuscript blur together into a soft gray mist as you surrender to the heavy pull of a dreamless sleep, knowing that the logic is constant and the world is balanced, and the silicon is just a mirror for the wisdom of the ancient stars. Sleep now in the glow of the digital sunset, where the history of the world is a gentle hand, guiding you toward the morning, and the only thing that matters is the steady and peaceful rhythm of your own heart beating in time with the universe. In the quiet hum of the modern world, where the sky is filled with invisible signals and the earth is wrapped in a web of silent data, there exists a profound debt of gratitude to a man who lived 1,000 years ago in a city of sand and stars. Imagine yourself sitting in a car as a gentle voice guides you through a labyrinth of streets, and realize that the heart of your GPS is not just a satellite in the cold dark of space, but the ancient logic of Al-Khwarizmi, who taught us how to find our way by following a sequence of undeniable steps. He is the father of modern computation, and as you listen to the rhythmic pulse of the world around, you can feel his influence in every pixel of your screen and every vibration of your phone. Your social media feeds, which move with the fluidity of a river, are guided by the algorithms that bear his name, acting as silent curators that organize the chaos of human connection into a steady and predictable flow. Picture the satellites orbiting high above, the clouds like silver beads on an invisible string, each one calculating its position relative to yours with the same algebraic precision that Al-Khwarizmi used to map the horizon of Baghdad. There's an immense and heavy peace in knowing that you are never truly lost, because the logic of the 9th century is still watching over you like a patient guardian in the sky. You feel the tension leaving your mind as you contemplate the vast and orderly network of calculations that make your daily life move with such effortless grace, where every turn you take and every photo you see is the result of a long and beautiful chain of thought that started with a reed pen and a piece of parchment. The father of modern computation did not dream of silicon chips or fiber optics, but he dreamed of a world where problems could be solved with clarity and where the path to the truth was open to everyone who followed the steps. As you drift deeper into the comfort of your bed, you can imagine the billions of tiny decisions being made by the machines around you, all following the blueprint of the algorithm. And this mechanical reliability is as soothing as the sound of a steady rain on a tin roof. The complexity of the internet and the mystery of the cloud are reduced to the simple and elegant rules of balance and restoration that Al-Khwarizmi perfected in the House of Wisdom. And this realization makes the world feel small and safe and manageable. You are a passenger in a digital carriage moving through a landscape of pure logic, where the variables are known and the destination is certain, and the only requirement is for you to rest and let the system do its work. The social media feed is a digital lullaby of patterns, and the GPS is a map of the spirit, and both are gifts from a scholar who believed that the universe was a puzzle meant to be solved with kindness and reason. The air in your room is still, and the night is long, and you are surrounded by the invisible legacy of man who changed the way we see the world by showing us how to count it. Every time your phone updates or your location is found, you are participating in a 1,000-year-old conversation about the power of the unknown and the beauty of the solution. There is no need to hurry or to worry about the future, because the computation of the world is in good hands and the logic is as stable as the mountains and as constant as the stars. Al-Khwarizmi is the silent architect of your digital life, and as his name echoes through the circuits of the globe, it brings a sense of profound and lasting calm to the waking mind. You feel your eyelids growing heavy with the weight of this technological history, where the past and the present are woven into a single tapestry of progress and peace. The signals are fading into the background of the night, and the screens are growing dark, but the algorithms continue their silent dance, ensuring that everything will be in its right place when you wake. For now, the only calculation that matters is the slow and steady rhythm of your breathing as you move from the world of data into the world of dreams where the logic is replaced by the soft and hazy light of the subconscious. You are safe in the arms of the digital age, which is just the latest chapter in the story of a man who loved the truth more than anything else. Sleep now in the gratitude of a world that works and the peace of the mind that is finally still while the father computation watches over the silence of the night. In the soft and hazy twilight, where the golden sands of the east meet the rolling green hills of the west, there exists a bridge made of light and logic that was built by the quiet hands of a scholar named Al-Khwarizmi, who spent his life translating the secrets of the earth into a language everyone could understand. Imagine this bridge not as a structure of stone, but as a long and steady path of shared ideas stretching across the vastness of the Mediterranean and the high peaks of the Hindu Kush, where the wisdom of ancient India and the philosophy of Greece flow together like two rivers meeting in a calm and deep valley. You are standing at the center of this bridge, where the air is cool and smells of distant jasmine and old library dust, and you can feel the rhythmic heartbeat of a world that is finally coming together in a single and beautiful harmony of thought. Al-Khwarizmi was the master architect of this connection, recognizing that a number or a star has the same value, regardless of the language used to name it, and this realization acted as a gentle lullaby for a divided world, bringing the East and the West into a state of mutual respect and quiet collaboration. Picture the slow movement of a caravan carrying heavy scrolls across the desert floor, where the only sound is the soft thud of camels' hooves in the sand and the distant tinkling of a bell, and realize that these travelers were the messengers of a new age, carrying the blueprint of algebra from a house, of wisdom in Baghdad to the universities of Europe. There is an immense and heavy peace in knowing that our global civilization is built on a foundation of shared discovery, where the logic of a 9th century Persian mathematician became the cornerstone of the American computer age and the European Renaissance. You can feel the tension leaving your limbs as you contemplate this bridge of culture, where there are no borders, only the steady and predictable flow of knowledge that transcends time and space to bring you to this moment of total and restorative calm. The bridge is a sanctuary of translation, where the flowing curves of Arabic script were carefully turned into the sturdy lines of Latin by monks who worked in the silence of their cloisters, feeling the same sense of wonder that you feel as you drift into the shadows of the night. Al-Khwarizmi saw the world as a single tapestry woven from many different threads, and he believed that by understanding the patterns of the math we could understand the common heart of humanity, which is a thought so soothing it feels like a heavy blanket being tucked around your shoulders on a cold winter evening. The air on this bridge is still and temperate, and as you look out over the horizon, you see the lights of 1,000 civilizations twinkling like stars in the dark, reminding you that we are all part of a long and steady chain of human progress that never truly ends. There is no room for conflict in the realm of the equation, because the truth is a universal language that belongs to everyone, and this certainty is a guiding light that leads your mind away from the noise of the day and into the deep silence of a dreamless sleep. You are a passenger on this bridge of light, moving slowly and rhythmically toward a place of perfect equilibrium, where the variables of life are balanced and the unknowns are finally at peace. The father of algebra was a connector of souls of man who looked at the horizon and saw not a boundary, but a beginning, and as you surrender to the heavy pull of sleep, you carry that sense of connection with you into the quietest part of the night. The world is a smaller and kinder place because of the work he did in the shadows of the library, and you are safe in the knowledge that the logic that connects us all is as constant as the gravity that holds you in your bed and as gentle as the breath that moves through your lungs. Let the image of the great bridge between civilizations fade into a soft blue mist as you sink deeper into the cushions of history, knowing that you are never truly alone because the ideas of the past are always there to support you, and the wisdom of the East is a twin to the ambition of the West. The journey across the bridge is finished, and the destination is a state of total and complete surrender to night, where the only task is to exist in the harmony of a world that has learned to speak the same language of peace. Sleep now as the moon rises over the bridge, and the shadows grow long, and the story of the connector of cultures becomes a whisper in the wind that guides you toward the morning. In the quiet shadows of 9th century study, where the only sound is the rhythmic and steady breathing of a man deeply lost in thought, there exists the gentle soul of Al, Khwarizmi, who was far more than a collector of numbers or a weaver of equations, but a human being of profound humility and quiet dedication. Imagine the soft light of a single oil lamp casting a warm amber glow over his tired hands as he leans over a desk with weathered oak, not seeking fame or the praise of kings, but searching for the simple and absolute truth that lies hidden beneath the surface of the world. He was a man who moved through the busy streets of Baghdad like a ghost of curiosity, wearing humble robes and carrying only the weight of his own questions, while the great city buzzed with the noise of power and gold around him. You can feel the heavy relaxation of a life lived with such singular purpose, where the ego is set aside like a heavy coat at the door, and the only thing that remains is the pursuit of a logic that serves all of humanity. Picture him in the early hours of the morning when the sky is a pale and dusty rose and the rest of the world is still dreaming, and feel the stillness of his heart as he corrects a minor calculation, not because anyone would ever notice, but because he believed that the truth deserved the utmost respect and care. There is an immense sense of security in the presence of a person so devoted to the harmony of a universe, a man who saw himself not as a master of nature, but as a humble student of its laws. And as you listen to the steady scratching of his pen, you can feel that same humility settling into your own mind like a soft, gray mist. He wrote in the prefaces of his books that all knowledge belongs to the Creator, and that he was merely a vessel for the wisdom of those who came before him from the plains of India to the mountains of Greece. And this lack of pride is a soothing balm for the modern spirit, which is so often tired of the noise of the self. The air in the house of wisdom is cool and smells of dried rose petals and old leather. And as you find a place to rest in the corner of his library, you feel the profound calm that comes from being near a mind that is at total peace with the unknown. He was a scholar who would spend weeks pondering a single variable, moving it slowly back and forth across the page with the patience of a gardener, tending to a slow-growing vine. And this lack of urgency is a lullaby for your nervous system, telling you that there is plenty of time for everything to be resolved. You are drifting now on a sea of quiet dedication, where the only task is to be as steady and as honest as the numbers themselves, and you feel your eyelids growing heavy with the weight of his enduring legacy. The human behind the math was a man of silence and small gestures, a man who loved the way the ink dried on a page and the way the stars followed their predictable paths. And as you surrender to the night, you realize that his true genius was not just in the algebra, but in the way he offered his life to the service of reality that is larger than any one person. There is a deep and satisfying boredom in the perfection of his character of life, without drama or conflict, but filled with the steady and rhythmic pulse of intellectual labor. And as you sink deeper into the cushions, you feel that same steady pulse guiding you toward a dreamless and perfect sleep. The world of the 9th century is fading into a soft blur of gold and brown, and the only thing that remains is the feeling of a hand resting on a page, a hand that was once warm and real and dedicated to the simple beauty of the truth. You are safe in the hands of a history that remembers the humble, and you are cradled by the logic of a man who didn't want to be remembered at all, but only wanted the world to be a little clearer for the people who came after him. The lamp is flickering now, and the scholar is finally resting his head upon his arms, and the house of wisdom is a temple of absolute quietude, where the only sound is the heart of the world beating in the dark. Let the humility of Al-Khwarizmi be your blanket tonight, covering you in a layer of peace and honesty that allows you to let go of every false worry and every loud thought until there is nothing left but the silence and the truth. Sleep now in the presence of a great and quiet soul, whose life was a series of gentle steps toward the light, and whose rest is as deep and as permanent as the equations he left behind for us to find our own way home. In the quiet shadows of the great libraries of the world, where the air is cool and smells of slowly aging paper, and the dust motes drift like tiny particles of time in the golden afternoon, light, there lies a legacy that is both ancient and ever-present, like the deep roots of a mountain that remain hidden while the peak touches the clouds. Imagine the name of Al-Khwarizmi resting on the tongues of scientists and engineers in the bustling labs of Silicon Valley and the quiet observatories of the high desert, but notice how his story often remains a hidden gem tucked away in the deep folds of history books, like a pressed flower in a forgotten diary. He is a household name in the language of science, yet he moves through the common memory of the world with the soft and silent step of a ghost, because his greatest gift was a language of logic that became so fundamental it is now invisible, like the air we breathe or the gravity that holds us to the earth as we drift into sleep. Picture the Massive stone shelves of the House of Wisdom, where his original manuscripts were kept safe through the centuries, and feel the immense and heavy piece of legacy that does not need a shout to be heard, because it is woven into the very fabric of every calculation we make and every path we take. You are standing in a long corridor of a modern museum where the lights are dimmed, and the only sound is the rhythmic hum of the ventilation system, and you realize that every digital display and every technological wonder around you is a living monument to a man who lived 1,000 years ago under a different sky. His legacy was preserved not by statues or monuments of marble, but by the persistence of his ideas as they travel from the heat of the Baghdad sun to the cold winters of medieval Europe, where they were translated and protected by scholars who saw the logic as a sacred trust. There is an incredible sense of security in the way a truth remains a truth regardless of how many years pass or how many languages it inhabits, and you can feel that stability settling into your own mind like a weighted blanket of historical continuity. We remember the word algebra, and we remember the word algorithm because they are the tools we use to build our future, but we often forget the humble man in the library who sought no glory, but only the clarity of a well-balanced equation. As you listen to the silence of the night, you can imagine the billions of times his name is whispered in the code of the internet and the equations of the stars, and you feel a deep and satisfying lethargy in the thought that some things are too important to ever truly be lost, even if they're hidden from a casual eye. His story is a hidden gem because it belongs to the quiet thinkers and the steady workers who know that the most powerful changes in the world are often the ones that happen without a sound in the stillness of a study or the darkness of a lab. You are drifting now on a sea of preserved wisdom where the voices of 1,000 years are gentle and repetitive murmur telling you that everything of value is kept safe in the archives of time, and that your own journey into sleep is part of that same eternal rhythm. The preservation of his legacy is a testament to the endurance of human curiosity and the way one quiet voice can echo through millennia to provide a blueprint for the entire modern world. The history books may keep his details in the margins, but the universe keeps his logic at its center. And as you surrender to the heavy pull of the night, you find comfort in the idea that being hidden is its own kind of peace where the work speaks for itself, and the worker can finally rest. The oil lamp in the ancient library has long since gone out, but the light of the logic continues to burn in every machine and every mind that seeks an answer, and you are safe in that light as it softens into the dark indigo of your dreams. Every line of algebra is a thread connecting you to that 9th century room, and every heartbeat is a step further into the sanctuary of a history that is as reliable as the numbers 1 through 9 and the miraculous 0. Let the legacy of Al-Khwarizmi be a pillow of logic for your head and a blanket of certainty for your heart as you move from the world of the visible into the world of the infinite, where the only task is to be still and to listen to the slow and steady breathing of the past. The manuscripts are safe, and the logic is sound, and the world is in order, and you are finally ready to let go and sink into the deep and dreamless sleep of the ages. In the final cooling hours of the ancient night, where the sky above Baghdad stretches into a deep and endless canopy of starlight, there is a realization that the ink on Al-Khwarizmi's page has become a universal language that speaks to every corner of the modern world without ever making a sound. Imagine a language that does not need a translator, because it is written in the very geometry of the petals of flower and the precise orbit of the planets and the invisible pulses of electricity that carry our voices across the oceans. This is a language of Algebra, a shared tongue of logic and balance that has united the minds of the East and the West for 1,000 years in a slow and steady rhythm of understanding. You can feel the heavy peace of this unity as you drift through the corridors of time where the variables of ancient Persia have become the equations of modern physics and the code of every machine that hums in the quiet of the night. Picture a world where people from every continent and every culture look at the same line of algebra and see the same truth, feeling the same sense of relief that comes from proper resolve and an unknown made known. It is a language of restoration that takes the scattered pieces of our questions and weaves them into a single and beautiful tapestry of certainty. And you can feel that certainty wrapping around you now like a heavy silk shroud that protects you from the noise of the day. Al-Khwarizmi did not just invent a method of math, but he discovered a way for humanity to talk to the universe itself. And as you listen to the steady and hypnotic cadence of this history, you realize that you are part of that great conversation. Every step of the journey from the House of Wisdom to the laboratories of today has been a path of increasing clarity and quietude, leading to this moment where the world is balanced and the logic is sound, and the only thing left for us to do is to rest in the harmony we have found together. There is an immense and satisfying boredom in the perfection of this universal language, because it never changes and it never fails, and it never asks anything of you but your presence and your peace. The air in your room is still, and the night is a vast and empty vessel waiting for the soft and hazy light of your dreams. And as you sink deeper into the cushions, you feel the weight of the centuries supporting you like a sturdy foundation of stone. The universal language of Algebra is a lullaby for the collective mind of humanity, a reminder that beneath all our differences there is a shared structure of logic that is as constant as the heartbeat of the earth and as predictable as the rising of the sun. You are safe in this world of numbers and balance, where every debt is settled and every field is measured and every soul is accounted for in the grand and silent ledger of history. The ink is dry and the scrolls are stored away in the archives of the heart, and the light of the lamp is fading into a tiny and distant ember that glows with the warmth of a job well done. Let the syllables of algebra drift away like white clouds in a summer sky, moving slowly toward the horizon until they disappear into the soft blue mist of the morning. The story of Al-Khwarizmi is the story of ourselves and our quest to find order in the dark, and now that the order has been found, we can finally surrender to the total and complete stillness of the night. The universal language is a silence that remains when all the questions have been answered and all the variables have been solved, and the world is exactly as it should be. Sleep now in the cradle of the golden age, where the history is a dream and the logic is a song, and the rest is infinite and beautiful and yours alone.